Alright guys, today we are at the Battleground Cafe and we have a special deck profile for you today for Dragon Ball Super the card game. This is going to be the Son Gohan deck, and this is going to be from one of my good buddies, Michael, who's going to be bringing this deck to a really big tournament here coming up soon. So we just really wanted to show off this deck and show what Son Gohan can still do here in the 2022 meta format. So, Mike, you want to take over for us?
Yeah, so today we are doing Son Gohan Future. So Future Gohan from Set 13, Supreme Rivalry. When the deck came out, a lot of people were excited about it, mainly me being my favorite character. But there was just something about the deck at the time that you just knew it was missing. You know, it was draw, hand size, consistent pressure, consistency in terms of getting your engine going and having that stay up. So what recently happened was the 2022 anniversary box came out, and it came out with a ton of Z card support. It came out with a ton of leaders and battle cards from Zenkai, and one of them being the new card for Future Gohan. And it immediately made the deck from unplayable, no one really touching it, even me, the guy who can't get enough of the deck, just had to put it down because there just wasn't a point. And we will get into the Z deck here real quick, but real quick we'll talk about the leader and kind of get this thing rolling. So, front side of the leader, it's about as good as it gets. When you attack, draw a card. Okay, wonderful. It has a regular awakening, 4 or less life, draw 1, untap 1, switch it over. And then it's got an alternate awakening where if one of your yellow battle cards with blocker is KO'd, you can draw 2, pick down to 6 life, and then burst 3 and flip over. And depending on certain matchups, you do have to decide whether or not to do the Alt Awakening and try to get that to work, or coming down to 4 life. Usually against aggro decks, depending on if you go first or second, they can get you down real low. And instead of doing like the Awakening to draw 2 instead of untap 1, draw 1, you may want to wait till you're at 4, untap, draw 1, because that 1 energy might save you from them actually killing you turn 2 or definitely on turn 3. On the flip side, I think this is one of the coolest leaders in general. First off, the art is fantastic, but he's got 2 autos that both work with your Future Trunks cards, one offensively, one defensively. So when it's your turn, when he attacks, you still draw 1, and then you could choose one of your Trunks Future cards, give it 5k and critical for the turn, which is fantastic because you've got a big 20k Trunks that becomes 25 crit, and you've got a 30 double dual barrier Trunks that then can have crit on top of all those other keywords. So that's obviously fantastic in and of itself. And then defensively, it has an auto that when your opponent attacks, you can choose one of your Trunks Future cards, switch it to active mode, and give it 6k for the turn. Now, what's so cool about this, and I'll just bring it, one of the Trunks is out. This is your 3 drop. This is kind of the main one you work with between the 1 and the 8 drop. Where if you have this in active mode and your opponent swings, because they're both your autos, your leader and blocker being an auto, you can block the attack and then resolve your leader auto to restand and then give it 6. Another thing that's cool is if this isn't even in active mode, if your opponent attacks, after his autos go, your non-turn player, your autos go off, which means you could actually switch him to active mode, give him 6, and then block again. Or at least the first time that turn. Even though he was in rest mode to see the attack, you're able to sequence those autos to actually stand and then block the incoming attacks. So there's a lot of cool sequencing that you can do with these cards. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's a ton of fun in terms of like if you're a control player who loves sequencing correctly and feeling the value and satisfaction of sequencing right, and showing how much you can do with so few cards. This is just really cool. It's a really good deck for you, let's put it this way. Before we get into the main deck, let's go over quickly the Zeke deck. 2 of the new card from the anniversary box. So this is a 10k Deflect Blocker. And so Deflect Blocker 10k, it's got a permanent that says your Trunks Future cards at the cost of 1 gain barrier. Huge, because this is kind of how your engine gets started, and this does not have barrier. It has unique, it's easily removed, and if your opponent's able to do that correctly, you don't get to go into your engine and the whole deck feels really, really bad. So, gives your 1-drops barrier is huge. It's got a lemon 1 effect that when this card is played, you can bottom deck a card from hand and then play a 1-drop Trunks from your deck. Again, again, huge consistency booster to get your stuff started if you did not open with a 1-drop, and it allows you to do it without having to neg one from hand. Even though you do bottom deck 1, it's still even, and it's actually a +1 based on how you're able to use the 3-drop, which is when you combo here. So play this. His effect is when a future Gohan card is KO'd or removed from your battle area via a skill, play a 3-drop Trunks on top of it. And why this obviously is so perfect is because play this, play the 1-drop Trunks, pass, okay? This is deflect, this is barrier. Your opponent attacks at all, you just block, let it die, and then you get to go into your 3-drop, and then you can choose to activate the alternate awakening on your leader if you want to or not. So that's how that goes. Again, huge consistency booster. This is like weirdly exactly what the deck needed. It could probably use one other thing, but in terms of making it unplayable and going to very much playable and have some decent matchup spread, this is an awesome card. As for the rest of the Z deck, one of the best Z cards in the format right now, obviously the Self-Awakener. Every deck should run at least one if they can. One of the Sun Gohan facing new foes from Zenkai Set 1. It's a deflect dual attacker. You don't get the rest mode on play effect because you're not a Piccolo SH leader, but you still get the permanent of evolving from the drop like a big Gohan, which is Flash of Brilliance on top of it. I run one of him for this exact thing. It's just a utility thing in some matchups. Maybe you have the ability to play this and then go into the big Gohan and do some damage. So I just like having utility, like that option there. 2 Oolong. This card's insane. I don't know why they printed it. To basically 1 energy, 2 Z energy, which some decks is absolutely nothing. You can play this for 1, choose any battle card, opponents are yours, ignore barrier, and copy that card's attack power. So like Piccolo Gohan SCR, Mira, you know, the Overwhelm that gets to infinity because of all the cards in your rest and warp. You just copy it, and it's just a second swing for 1 energy. It's absolutely insane. Every yellow deck should have at least a couple in there to really threaten opponents. The last one being the SSB Son Goku Z Battle card. This is kind of not nearly as used as much as these other ones, but there are some situations where slower matchups, maybe your opponent's leader gets something when it swings besides maybe just drawing 1. When you play this, you can choose a battle card, unison, or a leader card in rest mode, and it's cannot attack next turn. So basically like a set 10 4-cost Sin effect. He gets that on play. He's deflect barrier, so it's going to happen. His other auto is really cool. When it's in rest mode, if your opponent plays a card at all, so battle card, unison, field, whatever, I don't know why you do a field, but you can basically rip a Z energy to drop, and you can rest mode that card. And then once you do, you negate the skill for the turn. So this is just really cool. Gets around deflect. And again, we'll have its uses because it's a big target, 25k. If they don't want that effect, you know, coming off every turn, they have to swing into it. And again, 25 barrier. You know, it's going to cost some resources if they want to get rid of it. So that's the Z deck. I think it's solid. You never really use more than 2 of the future Gohan, so I think 2 is a really good number, and the rest I kind of like the ratios there.
Oolong seems to be in like almost everyone's deck that they can run.
Right. There's no reason not to run a 1-drop that can become super big for no reason. Like, it's just absolutely fantastic. So, main deck, the Trunks package. I run 3 of the 1-drops. You need 1. You'd like to open with 1 to use the effect of the future Gohan Z card you just saw, just for convenience sake. But in general, you can play one of these from deck or drop. So I run 3 because 2 is probably fine, but I will never be caught dead with 2 in like my life for some reason, and then not even be able to play the deck at all because of that reason. So 3, just to make sure if these end up in life, that's crazy. So the 1-drop, 3-drop is next. Obviously a mandatory 4 of. This is what your whole deck runs through. Obviously off the Z Battle card, Future Gohan, you play this for free. Before the Z Battle card, you literally had to like play a 1-drop Trunks. There's a couple other ones, and then on the same turn pay another one to go into your Trunks. So this is like a neg-2 from hand to get your engine started, and so the rest of the game you just had a small hand and it didn't feel good. So the Z Battle card really just fixes hand size and overall boosts consistency. This is a barrier blocker 20k. When your opponent, or when you attack with your leader, he becomes a 25 crit, and then defensively he's a 26k blocker. That potentially, if you swung the turn before, he's either a 1 block or 2 blocks on your opponent's turn. So fantastic card. And then we have big trunks here. I run 3. It still is a 1 plus 10K. Some big boss monsters recently in the Zenkai sets are now 5Ks for some reason, but this is, a much older boss monster. They made it a 10K. So you don't want to clunk too hard. 3 is just enough for me. With your 3-drop trunks' effect, if you have 4 energy, you can pay 2 yellow to play the big trunks on top of it in active mode. Meaning if you had already, you can swing with this, pay 2, and then switch to active mode. Huge. It's double strike, barrier, dual attack, blocker. It has all the keywords except for deflect. Crazy card. But again, without deflect, it can be God sealed, it can be countered. That affected me today as well, so it does suck. But I mean, if you land this without being countered, it's absolutely crazy. And again, 30K double duel. If you have this on board before you swing leader, your leader makes this 35K double barrier critical dual blocker. Like, it's an absolute mouthful, and this just does tons of damage if your opponent doesn't have a token negate or anything big to stop it. And if its swinging doesn't affect the game enough, when it's in rest mode, it has an activate main once per turn that you can choose 1 battle card and 1 energy of your opponent's, and they cannot be switched to active mode until the end of your opponent's next turn. So as long as you keep getting this in rest mode, you are freezing an opponent's energy and battle card, which can be super effective again depending on what they have on board, and if they're a deck that relies on their curve, like late game curve, they need to get to 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. For you to get them 1 step behind, again, can be huge in terms of winning or losing that matchup. So that is the trunks package. Again, 3-1, 4 of the 3-drop, and then 3 of the big guy. Now, the main card that really makes this thing go as well is this tournament pack card from at least a handful of sets ago. It's a 1-drop negate Vegeta Fatherly Encouragement. Again, 1 energy negate, play at 4K. What the best part about it is that it has an auto that if it's your opponent's turn and you combo it, you can restand a Trunks Future in your battle area. So like the old Zarbon card that everyone kind of fit into Yellow Sin way back when as well, this is just in archetype for Trunks Future decks that use blockers. And what's really fantastic is that it's a negate. So like there are certain sequences where you only have X amount of energy up, and you pay 1 to negate, and then they attack again, block with the trunks, and then your opponent swings in again, maybe it's a 15K, so you can get out of that and then restand this, and it comes over. So with basically 1 card out of hand and 1 energy, you're able to potentially block up to 4 attacks with the negate, a combo out here, and then 2 blocks with your trunks. So absolutely snapped card. You can also use it in Trunks Vegeta. That Trunks blocker is a 19K, so you're not getting as big. It's not as protected, but still, this is a really good card in Trunks Vegeta. It sees some plays in Set 2 Vegito, but this is basically the best deck to use it in because it helps your big beefy blockers stay alive and you survive. So a big part of this deck is you need to open with a cantrip to maximize resources early on, because you need the 1Z energy to play your future Gohan Z card on turn 2, right? And so instead of hard negging from hand, being able to play a cantrip, draw, and then between that turn and your opponent's first turn, you comboing it off to get that Z energy is huge. And my 1-drop lineup, essentially the way we look at it is 1-drops that have upside. So 2 Trunks Cunning, 2 Pan Growing Up Fast. I want to run 4 and have this be a side deck card for some of the blue running around. But this is a cantrip 1-drop barrier that can be played for free when you do like the Son Gohan SH card that I showed you in the deck. Helps out with Flash of Brilliance, so 1-drop with upside cantrip. This is also a cantrip, doesn't have barrier, but it's the long-standing effect that for basically the duration of the game, if your opponent uses a battle card or extra card to switch energy to active mode, they can't unless they warp 5 from drop to warp. And that hurts like Kaioken Goku SCR and some other niche cards. But again, 1-drop with upside. And then 4 of the Blue Hey Chi-Chi Melee Matriarch. It's 1-drop barrier again, cantrip. This is the one that if your opponent switches energy to active mode using a counter skill, you get to crit them a life and a energy. Now, this actually helped me win against Beerus Ramp Reboot today. Absolutely huge. He played a couple Dimension Magics, couldn't restand, and eventually I kind of got through the wall he had built thanks to this card. So this is fantastic. It's not unique, so like you could actually play multiple of these against certain decks, and their D-Magics will never ever restand. They can still use it to negate, but they won't get the full value out of it. So that's kind of my 1-drop lineup. Basil's a good option in here as well. But overall, again, 1-drops with high upside that just do something else other than draw. 1-drop, or 1 copy, excuse me, of Flash of Brilliance. Now, I kind of talked about this being a 1-of earlier. Again, utility, where you just have the 1 Z battle card. At some point, late game, if you need a push, 2 energy, 2 15s, you can free play the Pan, draw 1, not bad. And then pay the 1 to evolve onto the Gohan. And since you have Pan here, this is a double dual barrier and will pop something on play if you have a yellow unison. Pop something on each swing if you have a yellow unison in play. So again, good utility, good strong card, just another finisher option for a deck that has a lot of big swingers, or at least that's what you're kind of working towards. Extra card lineup. 1 power of a Super Saiyan, because of course this card is still snapped. Cannot believe it was ever at 4. 1 final flash. Just don't find myself needing a flash all that often in this meta, this current format. Certain matchups though probably have 1 or 2 extra on the side depending on what you're playing. 3 Black Kamehameha. The thing about this deck is that it can very much handle tallish boards. Wide boards are where it struggles because you only have so many blocks with your Trunks cards. So being able to 1 energy potentially stop 3 attacks by comboing out with this plus 10k and then tapping 2 other cards. Just super ideal in a deck that works the way this one does. 2 Frieza's Army Reinforcements. This could easily go up to 3. It's just fantastic again. Take a life. Stops 2 attacks. Again, this deck's all about stopping as many attacks as possible without using as much energy or cards in hand as some other decks would probably use. And then 2 Time Magic. I think this card's amazing in this format right now. As long as red is running around with Rush Attack Vegeta, there's the Cell that can restand if it eats 5, the Cell Z card. And then just in general, I mean, Gamma's big cells, like any dual attacker, any big thing that can restand and get bigger, stuff like that, this hurts so much. I mean, your opponents, red can sometimes play multiple Rush Attack Vegeta, so you being able to just stop them in their tracks is absolutely huge. It's a big momentum thing after they've use resources to hopefully make an impact, and you're just like, no, Time Magic, remember this card, it's really good. Ignores barrier, so again, gets through Rush Attacks, Vegeta's, all that stuff, all the defense of all those cards. Just fantastic. I think that there's just so much use for this card in this meta, and if you're not running it, at least in your side and your yellow decks, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Unison lineup is just 3 of the SS2 Gohan, mix and match here with the SPRs and SRs. Just a good card. Again, in slower matchups, on your turn 3, this deck's pretty much scripted turns 1 and 2, getting your future Gohans out, getting that whole thing figured out. And then on turn 3, like you have, depending on how the game went, this for 3 energy, or these to play, get yourself a 20k blocker, +1, draw 1. I mean, doesn't get much better than that. And then as the game goes on, if you're able to empower one onto the other, you do get the popping effect through barrier. Still very powerful. His -3, as you guys know, gives him triple attack, gives him and your leader 5k to the end of your next turn. So you do get a beam, and then 3 25k swings. I mean, fantastic utility, just in the right matchup. Fast matchups, you're probably never playing this, cite it out for something better. Super combo lineup. Of course, we're running the best yellow SCR. It's a little suspect that yellow is still a good color, but like for the most part, this is like if you see it, you definitely win. If you don't see it, you probably lose in some matchups, but what a great card. I mean, just absolutely insane. Defensively, of course, but offensively, being able to push here, just like turning a 4K into a 34K and pushing damage through with like a nonsense card. Fantastic. Obviously the tuck 1, draw 2 Krillin super combos to kind of round out that. And then for Riposte, because of course some matchups, man, Riposte just like doesn't happen. Still a good card. Offensively, it's still a 1-cost 15k beater if you just need an extra swing. Still has all the value that it kind of always has. Nimbus, Forbidden Power, I think depending on what you're playing, you're siding those in, taking these out. Obviously Resolve Renewed got hit, so only Set 2 Vegito plays it, so this does see a bit more life now going forward. especially against red. 2 coolers, probably do 2, never more than 2, probably 1 on the side, depending if you're playing blue or not. It is what it is, counter, helps you win games. Always got to keep more than 1. Some 1-ofs, Bergamo, Champa, Poutine. Of course, Bergamo doesn't necessarily feel as good as it has in the past. It just still feels like you got to put it in because you never know when you're going to need it and when it can help you win a game. Champa, because of course, Poutine, you play yellow. Might as well mess with your opponent as much as possible. Again, another barrier card. Frustrates opponents. All 3 serve their purpose. And then my overall lineup is right now Bardock Awakening Instincts and Dark Broly Heartless Berserker. This is kind of where you can toy with it. I think this is a deck that can run 2. This helps with draw and cycle, draw 2, place 1 in your drop. Why I like him is he's again, free 20k swing, cycle 2 cards, and then with Riposte, if you have only one extra card in your energy, and warping your drop makes you again lose Riposte online for 1, this will then allow you to pitch 1 into your drop again, so you can pitch an extra card and get that back online. Most overwhelms make you warp the card that you just pitched from hand. This one puts it to drop, so I do like the utility. And then Broly is just simply what it is. It's a overwhelm 30k, warp anything on your opponent's side of the board. So this combined with Final Flash to get rid of some big bodies is huge. So I really like this lineup.
It actually makes me think maybe I should be swapping out Broly for my SS4 overall. Because it's nice to be able to grab my sword in. But I feel like that being able to get rid of something would also help, because I do run Bardock as well.
Right, yeah. So it's just good utility. It's a good big swing. It's just something that forces your opponent to do something.
Okay.
Right? If you need to bait an opponent out like at the gate and you're trying to make them feel like you're going for game a certain way and you play Broly, they freak out, it's a big 30k, I need to stop it. Sometimes they don't need to stop it if they know what's good for them. This is not so much a side deck as it is just like something I'm compiling options for. So, Nimbus, I kind of talked about it earlier. In this deck with all the blockers, being able to negate the first attack and then say you got 1 more battle card attack, if they didn't sequence correctly, your 2 blocks off of your trunks are potentially all you need to stop the turn. So pay 1, pitch 1, block, turns over. So this can be a pretty good negate for certain matchups if you sequence correctly. Unison of Fury, still a good card. I mean, Gogeta, Sin, Vegito, like decks, the good decks in this format are still playing cards that cost more than their energy. So in certain matchups, this does help you survive and win. Some decks literally don't swing with anything that's not big early on, so like this is still a fantastic call in certain matchups. This is cheeky. Probably don't play this, but the 3-drop Trunks plays an 8-cost Trunks Future card for 2 in active mode, meaning that like if your opponent isn't prepared and they know they can or they just don't have a preparation for anything, and instead of the double duel, you can surprise them and play this, and you do get the triple strike, the draw 1, pop 2 things in rest mode, gain triple, activate battle, because there's 2 Trunkses underneath it, 2 cards that you can pitch. So this is just cheeky. It's fun to get people with. I'm not going to tell you it's the most plausible thing in the world. Forbidden Power, same thing. 1 more battle card attack for the turn, but doesn't negate the incoming attack. Again, you could play it, block with the Trunks. They have 1 more attack, potentially maybe 2, block it again with the Trunks, or combo card from hand. Like again, this just feels like a harder floodgate to end the turn in this deck because of how the deck runs with all its blockers. Tyrannical Blow, fantastic card as well. Will stop mirror matches like in Riposte. Floodgates that come in 3 or less, and then it can negate the skills of a battle card or Unison as well. So you can blank 2 things basically. This really comes in handy sometimes. I like it a lot. Death Blaster, kind of tougher card to use, cost 2, and then you got to warp 2 mono yellow extra cards from drop to warp. Whatever's coming into play, if it doesn't have deflect, it comes in rest mode, skills negated. So blue, like you can get them when they try to SS4 Vegeta, they don't draw 4. It's in rest mode. They don't get to restand. They don't get a 30k swing. They don't get a 30k blocker. A lot of big boss monsters as well get hit by this. So just kind of knowing your matchups. This is a card that can come in handy quite a bit. Release from Evil became much more popular with SS3 and Gamma becoming popular. You use this on either of those leaders. They don't get to restand at the end of the turn. Usually kills them because they need to restand. This also helps against Rush Attack Vegeta and other dual attackers and cards that want to swing big. Free with a Unison or one cost energy, make them nothing. Make them a vanilla, they can't restand if they're a dual attack. It's fantastic. And then 2 Striving to be the Best.
Absolutely love that.
I like this card. Yeah, it's one of the original campaign rares from the Broly BR movie. So it's a 2 cost that it's a 10k, so it's not really a big swinger. But you choose an opponent's card in rest mode with barrier, and ignoring barrier, you KO it. And then if you did KO a card, you can restand one of your energy. So like in yellow, this is cool because in essence, it's a 1 cost 10k barrier removal, like of any cost, which sounds really good. Again, you're playing Slug, Mirror Match, Future Gohan. Again, any big barrier thing sitting in rest mode, pay 2, KO it, restand 1, you're feeling pretty good. You got a 10k swinger early on. It has its uses. So that's kind of the side deck. I like all the options. It's not super solidified. Obviously, this is more than 15 cards. But these are just things that I'm messing around right now in the side.
Well, I have to say, man, not only is it really cool to see this deck coming back, but it's insane the amount of tech that you have with it right now to make it work the way that it is, especially with the new Z cards.